listening to the RM Podcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal
Sean Sebastian.
He's coming to us remotely this week. Yeah, we'll get into that in a sec.
He has leprosy.
He's got leprosy and we banished him. But we also have Mr. Oh, you're just going to sip your coffee?
Keith Cheatham.
There it is. There he is. Yeah, you got to introduce yourself.
I don't
Come
have
on
to.
now.
I don't have
Don't
to.
be a stranger.
I only know that coffee is a wonderful gift from God.
It is indeed. It just snaps. Even Sean, at his humble abode, has some coffee with us tonight. Are you sharing? Are you partaking? Oh, there it is.
It's not a moon
Look at
mug.
that.
I disapprove.
He's doing a little FaceTime with us. He's got his AirPods in. This is the beautiful thing about technology.
Technology.
Even when he's not here, the beauty of a flat piece of glass with some processing power behind it. Oh, he's gonna touch him. Oh, he's right in his nose.
Right in the nostril.
Right in the. Oh,
Oh, man.
Ooh, got him.
Man.
Got him.
You can pick your friends.
So,
and
Sean-
you can pick your nose.
Yep.
But you can't pick your friends' noses.
So, Sean, explain to us why you are coming to us from yonder, out there in Shepherd's
Over yonder.
Had a little bit of a scare.
Well, if you'd let me talk.
It's a delay.
Oh, there's a delay.
I'm kidding. There's not a delay.
He
No, there's
doesn't
not-
want you to
there's
talk.
Not much of a delay. So I went to work with a headache and a slight fever,
Uh-oh.
and got sent home and had to get a COVID test.
Yeah.
And I can't come back to work until
no.
I get the results.
Just the results? No matter
Just
how
the
it goes?
results.
What if they're positive?
Yeah.
Like,
If
oh,
they're
you got the
positive, you
results.
Yeah, you can come back to work.
Oh, well, wait,
Yeah.
positive results, meaning like you positive
Well, he said
COVID?
they just need the
Oh, yeah.
results. So
Oh.
as
Yeah,
long as
they-
you know,
Oh, you could just
Yeah,
come back.
they want us there pretty bad. So
Well, you know, if people were working remotely from home,
Huh.
kind of like we're
Yeah.
doing the show
Huh.
here, you know, you
Yeah.
wouldn't have that problem,
Huh.
would you?
that's
Well,
right.
we're glad that while you seem healthy, though. You don't seem like it was,
yeah, you seem all right.
you know.
No more fever, no more headache. I'm just enjoying days off until they let me come back.
Wow. So, I mean, no symptoms? Any more symptoms than a headache and a fever?
Nope.
Wow. And how
Mm.
long did that last? Was that like a 24-hour period or
Not
48?
even
Not
yeah,
even that?
Not even 24 hours. No.
Well, hopefully you'll be with us again next week here in person, and you won't have to avoid the studio and avoid everybody like the plague because, well,
been,
that's,
you know.
that's what COVID is these days.
It's been a crazy week.
It has
full
been.
of full of hijinks.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
it has indeed.
Oh no!
Oh,
no.
gosh! Oh,
no.
gosh! He's. I think he's okay.
He's spreading
Man,
that
I got a
leprosy
little-
around.
Got a little lightheaded there.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Drink your coffee. It'll be okay. It'll be all right. He's got
Just
it.
kidding.
We're just gonna buy a plastic bubble, and you're just gonna have to live in it forever now.
Bubble boy.
I think my coffee cup has a leak.
Oh, no!
that ain't good. You got to get
No.
a new one of those.
It's not a moon mug.
It's
that's
not a
why.
moon mug. That's why. That's a
Yep.
special mug.
Mm.
But we do have a great show, even with Sean at home, hoping to get that negative COVID test back. But hey, taking the proper precautions. That's what everybody's supposed to do.
He's doing his part
He
as a good
is.
citizen.
as a good servant of the community.
Mm.
But we do have a great show for everybody. But Keith, you were about to mention the great hijinks that ensued this past weekend. Indeed.
Need a whole nother boat.
I don't know. I mean, I've got pictures on my phone. I don't know.
I didn't know if you were
going
to throw them up on. I thought you would throw them up
I-
on the screen.
I don't have
Yeah,
them. I
yeah.
don't have them
He didn't
available
prepare.
for the screen.
He didn't prepare.
But I do have an iPhone.
See, I thought that's what you were going to do with our Instagram photos was,
Well, here's the thing. I did post the one to Instagram
yeah,
that
yeah.
happens
the
to
one,
be
the
a
pretty
beautiful
one.
sunset.
It's the other ones that are more fun. Those are the ones people want to see.
They are indeed. And I think after the show, we probably will have a formal,
we
a
could,
more
we could put
formal
those
way
up
of
there.
posting them. Because I wanted the story to be, told.
Every year, I mean, we've gone to the lake for the last, I know for me and Sean, it's been 14 years, 13 for you. So a long time, over a decade. That's impressive. And there's been mishaps aplenty for sure. But one constant is no matter how beat down and run down it is, the boat, it always gets us there.
It
might take a minute to get it going, but it always gets us there.
Comes through.
But this year, and we haven't found the exact reason yet. We're hoping it was just a loose plug, but maybe there was a crack in the left pontoon of our boat, and it took on water. And I mean, we used it for a good two and a half days, because we didn't know it was taking on water. I mean, it floated, it seemed fine, and then on that third day, it just got enough water in it that the boat just started going down. We brought it back to the dock. We went to get the trailer down to the boat ramp. We were going to try to take it out. But by the time we got all our stuff together, it was halfway in the water. Yeah, that's not even the worst of it.
Showing the picture of that's not
that's not even the worst of it.
It keeps getting worse.
It just kept going further. We eventually had to have a guy come tow it around to the boat ramp. And that was an adventure all on its own.
He looked straight up like Joe Exotic.
He was Jody Exotic.
He was Jody Exotic.
I didn't believe you until I saw him, and then I was like, "Oh yeah,
he straight up does, doesn't he?"
Joe Exotic.
He came puttering around in a little speedboat, and we thought, "How is the speedboat getting us around to the boat?" It was a work of just pure genius. I mean, we had to pull in another pontoon. He used these straps to basically use physics. I mean, whether I don't think Jody realizes it or not, but that's really all it was physics. He used the straps to pull the side that was floating down and then lift up the side that was sinking. And then all of Appalachia showed up to sit on the boat.
That's the next one that I got up here.
They
which
showed
is
up
just
to
perfect.
sit on the side of the boat that wasn't sinking to try to keep the sinking side up. So
it was a feat of engineering. I ain't
It
gonna
was
lie.
a community affair.
It sure was, and the community.
Whoa! Did those people give you a photo release?
They did. They did. I made them all sign NDAs, so they were not allowed to talk about this until tonight's show.
I hope so, because if not, they're gonna be going to court.
They could. They could totally.
That's what they're gonna be telling you.
They're gonna try it, but we
Yeah,
got
boy.
Red Moon lawyers lawyering up right now.
So basically, we're going bankrupt.
But you know what?
But 0% of like any percent of $0 is going to be zero. So I guess we're okay.
Yeah, we're fine.
It pays to be in the red every now and then.
But of course, I did just end, and that's the shot we have on our Instagram page. I mean, it was a beautiful sunset.
It was.
I can't
There were a lot
deny
of
that.
Yeah, it was true.
It was a gorgeous night to have a tragedy.
I mean, most of the day we had one day that
I'm sure
that
the
rained.
Titanic had a beautiful night
Oh
too.
yeah.
when it went down.
Yeah.
Yeah, starlit sky.
Starlit
You could
with
see your breath. It was beautiful.
with constellations from the wrong hemisphere above them.
Yeah, and echoes.
echoes.
Yeah,
on the open water.
that's right. JC movie sucks.
Yeah. Yet you watched it when we came back from the lake. I saw that post.
It's
yeah.
It's a dirty
It's dirty.
habit.
He said it's dirty.
It is. It is a dirty. Well, all I can say is that it's a filthy habit that I have. It's a guilty pleasure.
Makes it sound like he's
okay?
like
I can't help
like
it.
chewing tobacco or something. It's a dirty habit.
Dirty habit. You know, when you're smoking. That's what I equate Titanic to.
Yeah.
Is smoking a pack of cigarettes.
Cancer.
No, but we did have, you know what, barring that, happened on our last
We
full
still
night
had
there.
some good times.
Absolutely, as we always do. Enjoyed terrible B movies,
Yeah.
and we enjoyed
mean,
each other's company.
the time we spent on
Good
the
friends.
water was really enjoyable. Even that last night, as crazy and with all the mishaps as we had, just hanging out, sitting around the table on the patio, listening to music was a lot of fun. Like I really enjoyed. As stressful as that last day was, it was nice to have that moment with friends. So I mean,
Absolutely.
that was really nice.
Right.
Well, I was to say, hey, pull one together. Got to pull one for the troops, and that's what we were doing. We were hanging by each other's side, and some of us were waiting 2 hours for just the next
All right. our
next
good
objective.
buddy Brian, your neighbor, came down with us for the first time ever, and he might be too scared to come back now. I don't know.
I would say we gave him the full experience, if anything. We gave him the full experience, no doubt. But we did have a fun trip. Looking forward to next year, hopefully, with the pontoon being
Speaking
fixed.
about all of us as friends while on vacation.
What a segue. The master of segues.
I mean,
there.
just
That
a
was a
bunch
good
of
one.
buddies.
It was.
And we have a movie all about vacation friends.
What?
Yeah.
Should we?
It's a Hulu original from 20th Century Studios.
Wait, why aren't we doing Candyman? Wasn't that the bigger release this weekend?
Well, because we were at the lake and we couldn't go see it.
That's really the only reason,
And the
guys.
boat sank. And
I hate to say.
after the boat sank, we just, trying to figure anything else out at that point was just, we were done.
We felt demoralized.
I think we were a little. It was a weird year coming home this year. I mean, I enjoyed the trips as we always do, but I do feel like it was a little less. There was a little less oomph in our step that last day. So
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. But you know what? We carry on. We
do.
do have a review for everybody. We probably won't get to Candyman, in terms of an official review.
There's a lot
I think
of-
we'll see it.
I'll check it out definitely. There's a lot of newer movies coming out the next couple of months. So I don't know if we're,
Shang-Chi is our next
yeah,
one.
yeah. Shang-Chi comes out this weekend. And then there's even a couple. I mean, I don't know what we'll review after that, but I do know there are some bigger movies. Clint Eastwood's comes out, I think, the weekend after that.
Oh, which one is that one? I forgot which one.
Oh, I forget the name of it.
I'll have to look that up during the review. We can look that
and
up.
then there's another one that's pretty big. James Wan's new horror movie, *Malignant*, comes out, I think, the weekend after that, and I do want to see that.
Absolutely.
Towards the middle of September. So, and that's going to be on HBO Max.
See if he can strike gold again
So
with a
yeah, I
different
mean,
horror
we got some
series.
bigger things coming, so we may not be able to get back to Candyman.
We've even got Halloween month coming. 1 month away.
I'm excited.
We're August 31st, so we're September.
I went to the Dollar
double
General
reviews.
today to get some soap, and they
Who
had.
steals soap?
I didn't steal it. I bought it, but they had their Halloween stuff out already.
Oh,
and I
they
got
did?
super excited. I always get excited when the holiday decorations
I know,
come out.
when the fall leaves start showing.
Wait till they start putting
I'm
Christmas
waiting.
trees
Showing.
in the stores. Ooh.
Showing.
I'll get really excited. I see Halloween and Christmas decorations, and I
know.
do.
I'm ready. This is 1 year. I don't know why. Last year was terrible with COVID, but this year I am
It's probably
ready
gonna be
for the
terrible
holiday
with COVID
season.
too. But
Don't say that. Don't say that.
it's not that I think it'll actually be terrible with COVID. The government's just going to force it to be terrible because of COVID. So, but that's just my opinion.
All right, we've teased it long enough. Let's get
to
on
the
with the
review.
show. Let's get on to our review. Here is our review of Vacation Friends.
As the Red Moon crew return from their glorious vacation, full of their own wild adventures and crazed hijinks, it only seems fitting that we review Hulu's latest film from 20th Century Studios, Vacation Friends. Starring John Cena and Lil Rel Howery, the plot centers around two couples with little in common forced together during a vacation in Mexico. Directed by Clay Tarver, Vacation Friends is a fairly generic buddy vacation comedy. Howery plays Marcus Parker, the owner of his own construction company, on vacation with his girlfriend Emily, played by Yvonne Orji, who he plans on proposing to. When the hotel room they booked is destroyed by an overflowing jacuzzi from the presidential suite above their room, Marcus's proposal is seemingly ruined, until he and Emily run into Ron and Kyla, portrayed by Cena and Meredith Hagner. Ron and Kyla are loud, brash, and live life without worry of any consequences, opposite of Marcus, who is uptight and reserved. Over the course of their vacation, Ron and Kyla help Marcus and Emily to let loose, leading to a last wild night in Mexico before the couples part ways, with Marcus and Emily hoping to leave the events of Mexico permanently in the past. 7 months later, Marcus and Emily are set to be married, when Ron and Kyla arrive uninvited to the wedding, bringing chaos and an attempted life lesson in their wake. Vacation Friends is not the worst film to come from its genre, and does have some genuine laughs. John Cena and Lil Rel Howery do have solid comedic timing and delivery, when there is actually decent material for them to work with. More often than not, however, they just don't have any good material to deliver on. The movie is painfully bland and predictable, which is a shame as there are some solid comedic ideas sprinkled throughout, and Cena and Howery play well off each other when the material is at its best. Both actors have seen a surge in work this year and have proven popular among fans. The The comedic potential is there, it's just never fully utilized. The movie just feels too paint by numbers, never committing to anything other than base jokes that have been done a million times before. Every so often you get a glimpse of potential character development or emotion, and the occasional well-delivered joke, such as Marcus's steering the vacation boat or Ron's uncanny ability to tell when a bird is about to shit. These moments are funny and add a bit of quirky development to the characters, but when we get to the final emotional climax, I didn't care if these people liked each other or not, and knew it didn't matter anyway, as the film would proceed to wrap up all of the conflict in a generic happy bow. Vacation Friends just doesn't have anything to offer, and ultimately doesn't go anywhere or have anything significant to say. Yes, I did mention earlier an attempted life lesson, but even it was a generic Hollywood, live life to the fullest theme that would have been more impactful if the film had any real consequences. With a tighter script, better direction, and a little more realism, this film could have been the next Wedding Crashers, The Hangover, or even Meet the Parents. But it's all of the most generic parts of those films with none of the charm or personality. Plain and mostly forgettable. I give Vacation Friends 2 out of 4 stars.
2 out of 4 stars
Dos
for Vacation
stars.
Friends. Dos semanas. That's not 2 stars, but I actually don't know what stars is in Spanish. But no, 2 out of 4 stars. That's our official
Like
review.
the villain in Suicide Squad, Starro. It's Dos Starros.
Yeah, Starro.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Well, that is his name. I don't know. I don't think Starro is correct.
Oh,
Spanish,
okay.
But his name
is
is Starro.
No, I like that. Dos Starros.
Starro.
Yeah. But no, so let's go around the table. Sean, what did you give it? What did you?
I gave it 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you liked it a little bit better.
A little bit more than me.
We want you care to well, you know what? Here, I'll say my score. I was on the cusp of giving it 2.5, but I settled on 2. And the only reason I settled on that was because during the review, while I was editing it and I was putting the video together, I realized there was not even a lot of clips that I could use in the review. And so this is one of those instances where I almost like just copied and pasted the first part of our video review and just put it at the end. So it's just terrible. But there just wasn't a whole lot of media for this. And it completely made sense as to why this is on Hulu and it's a smaller release.
Yeah, I think it's just the movie by any means. It did entertain me. I got some laughs out of it. I just felt it was very generic.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Sean, what about you?
I kind of feel the same way. I did find it actually pretty funny. I just like John Cena doing comedy. Like I feel like that's all he's good at.
Yep.
But he does it well, and through the very few films that he's been in so far, where he's had more of a role that's more towards the forefront, I feel like he's evolved with his comedy and his punchlines and his facial expressions and even the body language. Like he doesn't just stand there like this huge wrestling dude like he does in Fast 9.
Yeah.
He actually is very animated, and it's really, I don't know, I just thought it was very funny and entertaining. I would watch it again. But it like I kind of texted you guys about it today, I felt like it was a cliche comedy film. How many comedies have we seen where it's a couple meets up with another couple and they just don't jive, and then at the end of the movie they're best friends again?
Could not agree more.
I mean, there's so many movies like that, but then it also borderlined on The Hangover with kind of this outlandish stuff that happens towards the beginning of the film. But even though it teeters on that level, it doesn't quite go there, which was one of the things that I really liked about it, was that it didn't. Well, everything they do, as crazy and as messed up as it is, it's very believable. And there wasn't hardly anything that I couldn't see a real person doing. Like The Hangover, they do stuff that nobody would ever really do.
There were a couple of scenes I thought that were a little bit exaggerated. Like the first introduction, for instance, when they're riding on the jet ski and she's on the back. Like if she was smoking like a blunt or a joint, but doing a full on bong,
doing a pipe,
yeah. I was like, okay, this is a little bit much. And then also them coming in there, and I don't know. To me, their personalities where at the beginning she seems like a ditz when she shows the phone of like, I look where I parked the jet ski, but at the same time, and it's of course the full ocean view, like, oh yeah, you'll be able to tell where I parked it, but then we're supposed to believe that she's not a complete idiot. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, you could chalk it up to maybe she's high or something, but I just thought there was some unevenness there in terms of the, who they were at the beginning of the film. Like, were they set up to be just comedic laughter, or were they actual people who had real personalities that you could depend on and be consistent with throughout the whole movie?
Yeah, and I didn't think her character, the blonde, I didn't think she was anything other than she's just supposed to be this ditzy, dumb. There were moments in the film where I felt like they tried to give her a little bit more than who she really was. Like when she's given the grandmother like the pills and it's making her better. Like, and I also thought there were moments where she was going to kind of like give some sagely advice, and you see that she really is like a wise person, but they never really gave her that moment. But then the flip side of that is John Cena he's so just dumb and kind of irresponsible and immature. But then later on in the, halfway through the film, you find out that he's a former Green Beret and he's done all of these other things, and he's earned respect from other people. And he really is a good guy that's just trying to do, a solid for these new friends and everything. And by the second half of the film, I stopped feeling like John Cena's character was this irresponsible dope, and that he was just maybe a little bit clumsy and a little bit overdoing it on the friendship thing. But then you find out that he had a former Green Beret guy that he was really good friends with that died, and you're just like, all he's really doing is just trying to replace a friend that he lost. And you kind of
fill that hole. Yeah.
You kind of have a heart for him, but you never really, I don't really feel like I ever had a heart for his spouse or fiance, girlfriend, whatever she is.
Right.
I never really felt emotional connection to any of them. I mean, I got what they were going for, and I do appreciate they tried to give more depth there, and I do agree that John Cena was really the only one they really gave any type of depth to with the Green Beret. Yeah. But I just felt like there were too many instances where, like, I would have almost because there are really good moments, like I said, like with the golf scene where he makes the joke about getting it on the green but paying the guy off to kick it in the hole. Like, that was a believable moment for me. So it was moments like that where I was like, oh, he isn't just this big, huge idiot. But then they would do other stuff that were just so unbelievably stupid that like Brandon said, it was kind of like I couldn't reconcile it. It was like, okay, you can't have him do something that stupid, but then still make me believe that he's intelligent enough to be a Green Beret and to pay this guy off for the golf course. It's like there was just a few moments I felt like they went a little too far on how stupid he would be.
Agreed.
But overall, those there weren't a lot of those. I do think he was definitely the funniest character in the movie. I've mentioned to both of you the whole him predicting when the bird was going to crap.
Yeah,
that got me every time. So.
Every time, yeah. And even like the last one not the very last one, I guess, but the one where the guy drops the rings.
Yeah,
like when it does the slow motion and all this stuff is happening, and a squirrel's going up a tree with a bagel and all this weird stuff is happening. And I'm just like, what is going on? And then as soon as I see the crow, I'm just like, he's going to say that bird's about to crap. Like, I just knew it. And and even that scene was realistic in the fact that it was just sheer clumsiness that, he drops the rings. And I liked that, but I also liked that they didn't go like, I was waiting for them to crawl down in the sewer to find it, and there be this big funny scene of them like
crawling
down in the sewers and crap.
Yep.
And they didn't do that, which I was happy. It's just like, let them be gone. They're gone.
Yep.
And even if at the end he would have shown up with those rings and, made a joke about ruining his shoes or pants or something, going down there and getting them, I would believe that, because that's who John Cena's character is. Mm-hmm. He'll do whatever he needs to do to make good on a friendship. And I don't know. I just like that. I gave him a little bit more slack because his character was in Kuwait or whatever country he said he was. He said he was in there for 4 years or whatever, and I'm like, I mean, if you live through that crap, then you can come home and do whatever the hell you want. That's kind of how I feel.
Well,
beyond breaking the law.
I was gonna say, like, to me, I will give him that credit in terms of, again, kind of more so because John Cena, I think, does do a good job with comedy, and I just like seeing him in another role where he just kind of cuts loose. And I like the fact that, and I don't know, maybe it's just a trend with WWE superstars. But now that they kind of have agents, I think, that are preparing them for getting ready for the big screen and kind of easing them into roles of like, well, here's what your strengths are. Why don't you play to those? Because, I mean, we've seen, Bautista kind of play and cater to more of the serious roles now that he has done something funny like a Guardians of the Galaxy. But then he can also be a villain in the 007.
Yeah,
but
well, he's actually in the that show that I've told you all about on Apple TV with
Jason Momoa.
With Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
He's the new main villain in that. He plays Momoa's brother, and I watched the first episode of that, and it was great. And he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like he's turned into a full-fledged actor.
I was gonna say he wasn't even that bad. I mean, the movie was bad, but he wasn't even bad in Zack Snyder's Zombie.
Oh yeah,
the zombie. Forget
Army of the Dead.
Army of the Dead.
Honestly, I think so far the best job I've seen him do was in Blade Runner. He actually did a really good serious role in Blade Runner, and he's going to be in one of the villains in the upcoming Dune movie. So I am kind of curious to see how he does in that as well, since that's supposed to be more of a serious role.
Another thing too about the film, I thought, and this is going to get a little political, but I think it's in a good way. And I questioned whether or not I should say it.
Can't help getting political.
I can't help, saying my 2 cents.
Always.
I will say that I was actually happy to see, for once, an affluent black family just portrayed normal, without any kind of plight, without any kind of, we're overcoming this hurdle. And I felt like that this film did a good job of just making it like, here's a normal family.
Well, it was just a bunch. Yeah, it was a bunch of normal people, regardless.
They didn't have any kind of social message,
regardless
that they were trying to push
of race,
through.
credo, anything. They were just all normal people, and I agree with that. But it was funny because I was going to actually mention to you, I did read an article, and I forget who had posted it the other day about how they said that was a problem, that they don't address any type of racial issue in this movie.
Yep.
And they said
they were going to.
They said that was one of the knocks against this movie was that they just treated everybody like everything's just normal and fine. And it was like, because it is.
I mean, that's such a shame
that you have to knock a movie because it doesn't.
That gets it, because there's actually a scene in the movie which I thought was hilarious where John Cena's talking about living off the government, and the I forget his name, but the black guy,
Marcus,
he says, so I've been paying your welfare check. And,
yes.
and John Cena just goes, yeah,
probably.
And
even the scene specifically
with his buddy Charlie.
John Cena
you
shows his
me
buddy
just of Charlie,
and he's like, dude, we're not even the same color, and he's like, it has nothing to do with color. It has to do with
a pasty
spirit.
white guy with red hair.
He's like,
and he goes, but you're the same soul. Yeah,
exactly. And that to me, that cut through the BS. And again, an article who raises that kind of concern of, they don't overcome anything, that immediately tells me, okay, you're racist.
Yeah.
That whoever wrote that article is racist.
Yeah,
because you're looking for the black people to be downtrodden. And I think that's absolutely wrong.
They don't think a black guy can own his own construction company.
It's absurd. I mean, it's absurd.
It is. It is.
And it is just straight up racism. And that's one thing that I did appreciate with this film. Is I didn't like the story overall, but I was like, I was glad they didn't play into the cliches or the stereotypes with regard to that kind of propaganda that you could easily get into in this day and age with, all the social agendas that are being pushed. And I was just glad it never went down that road. It was just, sadly, a typical cliche comedy that just didn't have any originality. And that was the only knock against it that I had to fault it for that. I couldn't give it leeway.
Now it was I wanted to look it up because I knew it was just a very it's not a major
published
website
article.
Yeah, but I just knew but it was salon.com that had posted how
of
it was.
course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Vacation Friends is a happy buddy comedy in a world where race doesn't matter. That's a problem. That was the name of the article.
Gosh sakes! It screams racism.
So apparently, if you don't have a problem with the race, you're racist.
Well, no. What you're basically saying is because this movie shows affluent black people, you now are a problem because that just doesn't happen in the real world. It's
Yeah.
absurd. That's the underlying like. That's
Kind of
just
like if a
absurd.
president would have said that if you don't vote for him, you're not black.
Yeah.
Something
Oh.
like that.
No.
They wouldn't do that though, right?
All right.
We're getting
A
a little.
white president at that. You know,
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
I can see Obama saying that, but not a white guy.
Well,
Not a white
at least
man
if a
saying
black
that.
man saying it, it's different than if a old white dude.
Geriatric white dude.
It's
Yeah.
like talk about.
Yeah.
He was the one that said, "What was it? Put y'all back in chains."
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
absolute.
Yeah.
We're getting a
buffoon.
little more political than we probably should though. So let's
All right.
let's move along.
I was gonna say maybe that's our official review there of Vacation Friends, 2 out of 4 stars. Let's move on to our headlines. Here we go. What I think is funny is that Sean doesn't have to listen to it this week.
He doesn't.
He's only getting
Yeah.
the sound from the iPad, so
Yeah.
he's not hearing any of the
He doesn't
the
have to
music.
hear it.
He doesn't have to hear the
He
popping
could, he
in
could
his
say,
ears.
"I don't have to listen to you."
His earbud. He's pulled out his earbuds. You know, don't worry. We can't get that loud, can we?
I can hear you now.
I can get loud.
I could hear you scatting, but it was, it's not as loud and obnoxious as it usually was.
It's not as it doesn't
Usually
burst your
is.
eardrums like when you're
No.
burning.
Something.
No, plus I
Right in
have
the room.
volume control here. I can just turn it down a little bit.
Just another beautiful thing with
Turn
technology.
down the noise.
But we got some good headlines this evening.
Do we?
One really sad one.
Yeah, no. That one
I'm going to
is
go
a
ahead
sad
and
one.
mention it right off the bat
Yeah.
because it is a sad one
It makes me sad.
that I don't want to dwell on too much. But yes, sadly, the great and wonderful actor Ed Asner passed away this past week at the age of 91, and unfortunately, it's just one of those great losses because I think he is so well known across multiple
I
generations.
mean, yeah, he's definitely, I think, a legend in Hollywood, sort of older generation legend. And it's sad when you see ones like him go because you know that the people we currently have in Hollywood are horrible. So I mean, you don't want to lose the ones. I mean, he's been in a lot of really up until the. I mean, not in the last maybe decade, but the late 2000s, 2010.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was still acting. 'Cause,
well,
I mean,
and even in the
'cause
last
he did,
decade, he did more Broadway
yeah.
and on stage
He did.
performances.
Well,
Yeah.
and, I mean, he did because he voiced.
He was in Cobra Kai,
Yeah,
exactly.
and he was very good because he
played a
he
good
plays
one.
a jerk.
Yeah,
and
he
plays
does.
a jerk good.
And he knows how to do that real well.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, okay. He did the voice for I can't forget the character's name in Up.
Yeah,
but the old
the
man.
older
I mean,
man, yeah.
was a jerk. But then he was Santa in
Elf.
Elf.
Yep.
And I mean, I love actually. As weird as it is, because I don't normally picture Ed Asner as Santa, but I thought he did it because he was kind of a grouchy Santa, but it
well,
works.
it was a real. He to me was probably one of the more modern day but most realistic depictions of Santa Claus.
He looked good, yeah.
He looked good. He sounded like the part. But of course, most famously, he was on the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Yep.
And he also did a spin-off of that as the same character, kind of like a Frasier with
Yeah.
Kelsey Grammer doing Cheers and then Frasier. But it's like, he was the most winningest male Emmy Award winner, which I found that kind of surprising. And he also, of course, had a Emmy Lifetime Achievement Award granted to him back in 2001, and he still wasn't done yet. I mean, the man had a lot of life left in him, a lot more left in his engine, and it's going to be a great loss for Hollywood. And again, like you said, Keith, it's just as we continue to see these older greats pass, they're not being replaced with anyone who I think is as great. And I think we're seeing a lot of these stars of the older generation of Hollywood kind of show the golden age of Hollywood truly fading into the distance. And it really is sad. So Ed Asner, definitely rest in peace. And we've got your works of art to remind us of
We
your
will remember him.
But let's move on.
I don't want to because the rest of them aren't as.
They're not. Keith, you got that second one or the first one?
The first one, the first one's probably we're kind of going from best to worst here. So
Yeah.
now we're doing CinemaCon, which has, and amongst COVID, they just did it, right? It was CinemaCon in Vegas.
It was in Vegas, and here's the problem.
And
So-
they definitely
Well, they were trying to get around the pandemic. It was obviously a notable lack of attendees. But ultimately, I think the bigger issue here was you kind of had a slam fest on – well, I don't want to say a slam fest. A lot of the people who – you had NATO there, the National Association of Theater Owners, and they were being represented, of course, because that's kind of what this is about. It's about representing what theaters do and cinema does. And you had a lot of proponents on behalf of – the theater owners and, of course, theaters in general. But what the real issue, I think, began is you still kind of have this uneven territory.
A little bit of bashing on streaming and not having theatrical windows. I mean, they made the comment of it's the window stupid.
Sony's boss made that comment. And which is funny because, I mean, he was apparently on record for saying some controversial things previously when he basically came out. I forget what the comment was, but it was like, I think it was about the success of, I forget which movie it was, most recent that just came out and was theaters only. And he was like, Free Guy. It was Free Guy. He was touting the success of Free Guy. And he just said, number one, it's a great movie. And two, it's not on effing Netflix. Is what he said. And it was kind of course,
they bashed streaming services. And I will say there was one quote he said that I did like, and that was, "We're not too bright out in Hollywood." So
I know.
Said, but we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
At least they'll admit to it.
Well, that one I agree with.
But then you did have, I thought it was kind of funny because the president of the National Association of Theaters, he kind of stepped up to the plate and was like, trying to rally the troops of, don't worry, we're still out there. We're going to get strong. We're going to get over this hump. And he mentioned specifically about how they had only lost 1,000 theaters. They thought it was going to be way worse. But he also pointed to the fact that, the Directors Guild and the MPA were really behind them and supporting them. And he specifically brought up the motion of the Directors Guild to write the letter to Congress. And I just kind of see it as this kowtowing to Hollywood and this kind of like, which, granted, I understand they pretty much have to do.
Like they said, the theaters thought they were facing mass extinction, which I think was a little drastic. I mean, I know they felt that way, but I don't think that was ever real.
In the days of the pandemic, when, of course, nobody knew what was going on, and ultimately you were kind of like, okay, we don't know how long the effects of this are going to last, and let alone, is this going to be the game changer where movie studios decide not to go with us? Do they completely say, okay, we're going straight to streaming and or do day and date release? And that's kind of what he was rallying the troops behind is, but I just thought it was
at least
funny.
Maybe he mentioned maybe for big movies a 45-day
the
theatrical
blockbuster
window, and then maybe something smaller for smaller movies. And I mean that's what really that's what they're trying to do is rally like you said, the Directors Guild in Hollywood to try to create this window guaranteeing that theaters still have their chance to show the movies before going to streaming. And it's kind of just more of this fight of theaters trying, or at least large chains, because like we've said on the show, I don't think theaters are ever going away completely. Do I see large chains going away? Most likely. And I think that's what they're fighting against right now is they don't want that to happen. They don't want streaming to kind of become the de facto way people watch movies. And I do think they're kind of fighting a losing battle in that sense that I think as technology, I mean, it's everything. As technology advances, things change. And that's just the nature of reality.
That was already happening. The pandemic just kind of exasperated that and sped things up a little bit. But
no doubt. Well, and it's funny you say that because that was actually towards the end of the conference, that was one of the bigger points that they took home. The article from Hollywood Reporter was talking about how everybody was kind of waiting on Disney. Disney's the one major studio that is still reliant on the fact that they don't have a dedicated roadmap for the rest of the releases this year. They said Shang-Chi is going to be the one film that is going to kind of showcase whether or not they're willing to put forth the effort
theatrical
to say
only,
or is it going to be day and date?
If it doesn't do as well at the box office as they feel it should, they're going to go back to releasing things on streaming. And Disney's been very clear that Disney Plus is their bread and butter. They want to bolster that. That is their goal, is to release things on Disney Plus. So I don't see Disney backing down from that without knowing for sure that that's not their best option. So
I don't
see. That's, to me, that's unfortunate because I want to see Shang-Chi, or is that how you say it?
Shang-Chi,
Shang-Chi. But I don't see that being. We talked about this the last time we did a show. What was it? Was it last week? That we were talking about this?
I think
how
we
it
did
was,
talk about
it's
it.
kind of like a fill in the blank movie for Disney and Marvel. I don't think that movie is a good one to base.
I think they would have
a theatrical release off of. I don't think it's going to do good at the box office. Not because people can watch it at home.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because it's not a movie that people are dying to get out and see.
I think it'll do well enough just because it's Marvel, but I agree with you in the sense that I think if they wanted to experiment with that, Black Widow...
if it was Eternals or something like that, I think would be a better judge.
Black Widow would have been a better judge just because that's a character people already know.
And I think this kind of emboldens even ScarJo's lawsuit. It's like, why wouldn't they have chosen a character who was already established, who had a following from the previous films? Why wouldn't they have chosen that as a tentpole release in the middle of the summer?
Spider-Man, which is Marvel's biggest character, like the trailer that they dropped distinctly said only in theaters. So they already knew with that one. They're like, it's Spider-Man. So it's kind of funny how they're picking
actually, and it's funny you bring that up because that's proving right there exactly what.
But that's also has to do with Sony too, because Disney can't just put that on Disney Plus. They don't have any of those movies on Disney Plus because Sony owns the rights. Movie rights.
Well,
to Spider-Man.
and Sony truly is one of the proponents here. I mean, they're I forget what his name is in the article. It's Tom. Is it Tom Rothman?
Yes, Rothman.
But he specifically is. I mean, that's kind of a lot of the NATO peeps are kind of happy about him being a proponent because they feel like Sony truly is the one production studio that's behind
funny
him.
Because Sony and Disney have to partner together to make these Spider-Man movies, and you have the one studio that's all for streaming and Sony that's all like, no, we want this theatrical. And so with Spider-Man, Sony gets the final say in the distribution, so therefore they can't. There's nothing Disney can do about that.
Well, and Sony's kind of in more of a sore spot with regard to they need that to be a success.
Yeah.
And if they're counting on it to be a big blockbuster with that
really
IP,
have a lot of IPs outside of Spider-Man.
Well, and that's the other funny thing because they just sold Hotel Transylvania 4 to Netflix, so they're still doing some backdoor deals in terms of saying, well, for these that we know are going to do well, presumably we can project are going to do well in theaters, we're still going to count on those to be our tentpole franchises that make us the most money. Whereas Disney's looking at like, we got all these avenues, we got all these properties, we're going to look at how it makes our bank account
Disney's bigger. Just right now, they're so huge that they're very comfortable in feeling that they can do whatever the hell they want. Case in point with the ScarJo lawsuit. So until they get knocked down a peg by something like maybe this lawsuit, they're going to continue to just feel they're untouchable and do what they want.
And frankly, I think they are. just because based on everything that has been thrown at them, it's like...
because I don't see the ScarJo lawsuit really putting a dent in anything either. They're just going to be like, oh, we'll
even
settle that and
to Sean's point
and
about Shang-Chi... I'm gonna mispronounce.
That's right, Shang-Chi.
I want to say Shang-Chi because I want to
how
that's what I always say.
That's how you would pronounce it in English, but yeah.
But it's like to Sean's point about that movie not being their biggest franchise, or it's like I do think that to a degree they're wanting to use it as because of the positive buzz. Again, the primarily Asian cast. They're using this as a springboard of saying, hey, we count on this character to be enough of a momentum shift in the get back out to theaters. Like, hey, okay, we've seen successes with Candyman. I mean, Candyman was theaters only, and it roared to the top of the box office and had the success.
But again, and I mean, granted, while Candyman's not a huge horror franchise, I do think there's still more draw there with people who are familiar with the franchise than there is a draw for Shang-Chi, because most, other than very hardcore Marvel comic book fans, most people don't know who that character is.
Yeah, but also to the fact that if we had not gone to the lake and been on vacation and just not had enough time to go see Candyman, we would have probably went and seen Candyman because we would have been forced to go see it in the theaters.
Yeah.
So we're kind of in that bout of, okay, we're going to support it if it's the only place we can is the
go
theaters.
See Shang-Chi in theaters. I mean, if there's a Marvel movie, I'd rather see it in theaters. But I just don't think that's going to be a big enough draw to get mass audiences to come back. There's still a lot of people who won't go to theaters because they're still afraid of COVID.
Well, and one thing I wanted to underline, and this is, I think, the key takeaway from this whole CinemaCon, is I forget who is quoted in the article as saying it, but they specifically mention, if we as theater owners have clean facilities, friendly faces greeting all the people coming in, and a great experience all around, that is what's going to drive people back to the theater.
Yeah.
I think they're 100% correct in saying that, and ultimately,
But they got to deliver it.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
has that not been the biggest gripe that we've had with AMC and the experience?
I'm
that
happy
we've
to
had
go
there?
back to the theater, but that AMC has had piss poor service. The parking lot is in complete disarray. The inside of the building, like most of the theaters except for the IMAX, that seems to be the only one they actually keep halfway decent, have been either dirty or falling apart, seats falling apart, sounds not, like the speakers aren't very good. So, yeah, they definitely need to do something to fix up that theater.
Well, I think
doubt.
another hurdle that they're going to be facing is you don't create a very welcoming environment if you're asking for people's vaccination cards when they try to enter the building.
True.
And if that spreads from New York and LA to the center and everywhere else, I think they're going to lose a lot of patrons because of that.
And we mentioned that on last week's show about how they think that if that's for the greater good, then they're going to push that narrative even if it takes a loss. And I'm like, well, you're kind of in this gray area of you say that,
Can't afford to take
but
a
can
loss.
you really afford
They're
it?
hoping, because, I mean, there are people out there, like I've seen them make comments online. Some people are like, well, I refuse to go to the theater unless I know people are vaccinated. It's like, fine, then don't go to the theater. But you have the same amount, if not more. I think there's actually way more people that would refuse to go to the theater if they have to be forced to be vaccinated. So it's one of those things where the theater's like, well, we got these people who say they won't come back unless there is vaccination, and these people who say they won't come if we force it. And it's like they're in this hard spot where they're trying to figure out what to do and stay afloat.
And again,
well, I even like the rules that CinemaCon had that it goes over in the article. It says, of course, you have to show proof that you're vaccinated to be there, or you have to show proof of a negative COVID test.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where I'm fine to have to. I'm okay with having to do that. If you need the assurance that I'm not coming to your facility infected with COVID, which is if I had it and knew about it, I definitely wouldn't go anywhere. But at the same time, if you want me to mask up until I get to my seat, fine. If you want me to show you proof that I don't have it, that's fine. I just, if you're going to make one side prove something, then I understand making the other side of that argument prove something as well. And I'm okay with that, but I think the option should be there. I don't think
agreed.
I don't think it should just be one-sided at all.
No doubt. And I think, honestly, this is another instance you would have with – I think this is what's ultimately going to cause the disruption other than just the side effect of movie studios deciding the fate of what movies they release day and date on streaming and in theaters, but also when you have these bigger chains that are forced to comply with a huge swath of people that are putting the pressure on them versus mom and pop theaters that eventually, if they rose back up to then you're looking at, okay, well, I'm going to go support my community theater anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And we've seen that across the board with any kind of business, not just entertainment, but any business that has huge amounts of employees have been forced to basically take on the repercussions of, do I deal with the social pressures of whether it's my local government or just pure and societal pressure anyway on mandating this, or do I actually fight against that and say, no, I'm going to leave it up to my employees to choose the best practice for their own life?
I definitely know, like, personally, for me, like, when it comes to anywhere I spend my money, restaurants, stores, the theater, the places that I feel like I have been treated the best at, whether that's service, how they just treat me one-on-one, or whether I feel like my rights are being violated by being forced to do something asinine, I definitely spend my money, whether it's even if I have to go to Baxter Avenue and spend a little bit more money if I feel like they're treating me more fair than somewhere else, I would do that. Absolutely. I would rather spend my money supporting a local business that I feel like is fair as opposed to a company that I feel like only gives a crap about making as much money as possible, whether it infringes upon your rights or not. So,
yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to our next headline.
Well,
this kind of has to deal with some of the things we were just talking about.
NATO's calling on Hollywood to, rally behind them and protect the theaters, but right now Hollywood's more focused on protecting somebody else. So.
This is where we have to go down the political route again.
We do a little bit because Hollywood...
Well, it has to do with Hollywood, so it's okay.
Exactly.
Well, they claim they know the blue-collar person and that they're just one of us. They understand us, yet they rally and currently, for those who don't know, I mean, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, is amidst a recall, and Hollywood is now rallying together to try to protect him and keep him in office, though it seems the majority of his constituents don't want him. Yet Hollywood, being Hollywood, says, no, it doesn't matter what the majority wants. We know what's best for this state, so we need to keep him.
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, that's the saddest part is that, most of who Hollywood accounts for in the entire populace of California is very nil. Yeah, it's a huge. Well, and I think it's funny,
it's
too.
the biggest industry in California, but it makes up the least amount of people.
Well, it's like, could we really get past this story without also talking about how I think it was maybe 2 months ago in June that Gavin Newsom, spent a huge amount of money or doled out a bunch of taxpayer dollars to Hollywood because of the quote unquote pandemic and its ill effects that it had on the Hollywood movie industry. And of course, that's such a big industry of California and a big moneymaker. So, and again, this is back and forth between Hollywood elites and politicians who just eat from the same cup or eat from the same plate.
Well, I scratch your back, you scratch mine.
Exactly.
They're in bed together, and they have been for years. I mean, that's not unknown.
And of course, the Hollywood elites who are out there talking about how they understand the blue collar worker. No, they look down on the blue collar worker. They look
Absolutely.
They think
That's
that they
clear
can get
from-
down on their shoes. And you every once in a while you have a nice quote from Matt Damon who does a movie like Stillwater, and he understands.
I
understand
as a
it.
Trump supporter now.
Exactly. But it's like, no, how would I ever be caught dead voting for something like that or really truly?
It's clear to see their true beliefs and how they really view the average person. But like the article that we have, I was looking at just the tweet from John Legend, who that's one thing that always. Yes, people have differing political views, differing religious views, all kinds of things. But how you treat the person that you have an opposite view of says a lot about your character. And when you have someone like John Legend who wants to try to throw the citizens of Florida under the bus and be like, we don't want what they have. They have
DeSantis are California.
And it's like, okay, you say you understand the average person, but then you make comments that are derogatory about a state that actually is doing better than California.
Well, which is funny because his tweet doesn't seem like that. It's got a lot of misinformation
it says
in there.
They have higher COVID deaths now than ever, but it's still lower than California, John.
Well, when you I was gonna say when you count in factors of death per million, it's a magnitude difference.
Yes, huge.
And yet none of but I don't see his tweets being pulled down for that misinformation.
Well, no, because
again,
he spoke from his heart, and feelings matter more than facts.
Those trump,
and that doesn't even just the other day I was watching the news and they were talking about how even though the number of deaths are exploding right now because of the Delta variant, they're still lower than they were this time last year.
Yeah.
In every state, everywhere.
Well,
so
again,
I'm just how is that
it doesn't
be at all true because they were higher last year than they are now, so it's not higher than ever.
Well, now we're getting into fall and winter, and there's spikes just like there was last year, but apparently this is new to us, that when you get into months where people have to be crammed inside together, that it spreads more. Who knew?
Well, and not to mention that it's
suicide rates are up too.
Why
are we not talking about that?
Well, there's some that are, just like there's some who deny the facts that do exist and the hysteria they want to keep alive. Because at the end of the day, as long as you have mass hysteria and you have a crisis to fight, well, then that explains all the reasons why we would want to vote for a governor like Gavin Newsom, who would want to tampen down your freedoms in order for the sake of safety.
These people
and that's
are
the
giving
biggest problem.
Thouds of dollars to Newsom.
I was going to say, I want to read some of them.
200,000.
I mean, you have Netflix CEO Reed Hastings contributing $3 million to the Political Action Committee defending Newsom. You have the Entertainment Software Association contributing $50,000. Paramount Pictures gave $40,000. The Motion Picture Association spent $10,000. Now, some of these are a little low compared to what I would expect.
Well, some of them have individuals who personally gave away a couple hundred thousand.
Here's also what I think is funny. Take any of these amounts and compare them to what the NATO president was talking about with what the DGA and the MPA did for writing a letter to Congress to say, hey, help theaters. Yeah. It's like, wait, so you wrote a letter to Congress, but when it comes to actually acting on something, we're not going to give our monies to the theaters that we have.
Well, they don't really care about the theaters.
We're gonna give those to the political officials that we know are in charge that can line our pockets in the
just saying,
future
the
with taxpayer dollars.
As long as they have streaming services and other ways to line their pockets, they don't care about the theater. They make a big show, and there are directors like Christopher Nolan who I absolutely do believe do care about the theaters, but those are the minority. Most of Hollywood, as long as they get paid, they don't give a crap.
Of course not. Of course not. And we also have Lauren Powell Jobs, the widow of Steve Jobs.
That was 200,000.
200,000. Marissa Mayer, former president of Yahoo, gave 200,000.
Spielberg, I believe, gave 25,000.
25,000. Barbara Streisand reportedly gave 2,500.
Like, Steven Spielberg giving $25,000.
That's nothing.
That just shows you. Well, it shows you that I don't really think they really believe in it. It's like a.
Yes.
I mean, how many times? And I don't do this, but how many people do you think see a GoFundMe and they're like, oh, I want to get on board with that. I'm going to donate $5.
Yeah.
And it's like $5 to this cause that they don't give a crap about. They're never going to check it. They just want their name to show up on there showing that they gave $5 towards this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a $25K to Steven Spielberg is
like
$25.
That's nothing.
It's like $25 for one of us.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is.
It's just like I'm gonna give this money, and it shows that I'm on board and I'm part of this movement. But he doesn't really believe it. He doesn't believe in it. If he did, he would have gave $250,000 or $2.5 million,
right?
Which would still be nothing to him. But $25,000, and Barbara Streisand, well, $2,500. That's a lot of money to her. She's not relevant anymore.
Yeah, that was her splurging.
Yeah.
But no, I do think it's interesting because you always see this around any political season when the Hollywood stars come out to usher their support behind a Democratic candidate. It's literally it's the most predictable thing, and yet the real sad nature is that they don't care about the issues. They care about themselves, and they ultimately care enough about. They care more about the perception that they give off to the public. And like, we've mentioned again, they're more about browbeating everybody else into submission, saying that their way of life and what they understand is far superior than any other blue-collar worker or normal citizen out there could ever contrive or think of. And it's just, it's sad and it's ridiculous that we even look up to these people.
If you would do what they tell us to do, the world would it'd be a great place where
no
they would
doubt.
be even richer and we'd be even poorer.
Well, and just like, I couldn't say it better than Sony boss did, which is Hollywood. Yeah, we don't know what the hell we're doing, and I think that's true. They just continue to prove it over and over again with all.
Well, I mean, you've seen a mass exodus in California. Hollywood studios are filming they're making their movies in other states because they can't afford to make them in California.
Yep.
The people that work on these movie sets are moving out of California. So, I mean...
Well, hence the reason why
it's against Hollywood's best interest to keep Gavin Newsom.
But that's why they filled the big bank accounts of the studios to build bigger lots and more efficient lots, because now...
Who are you going to fill them with?
Nobody's
going to work at them.
And that's kind of
Well, that's what's funny is because, a lot of these movies film outside of Hollywood anyways. I mean, you still have... studios that have sound stage and stuff they film on, but a lot of on-location shooting is done nowhere near Hollywood nowadays, and so many other states give tax credits that a lot of companies prefer filming outside of Hollywood. What really matters to these people from Hollywood isn't the movies they're making, but that they live there, so they want to make sure that their lifestyle doesn't change.
Well, and sadly, it's I think a mark of you have a bigger mouthpiece. The more higher, more famous you are, the more elite you are.
Yeah.
But yet, you may have a wider reach. But sadly, the people who are really the true underdogs that are supporting your industry are the blue-collar workers that actually do work for a pittance of pay, the below-the-line workers. And like you said, Sean, they all may be leaving California, and that's probably the greatest reason why they may win is not because they don't have people to thwart Newsom. It's just all those people who would thwart him and get him out have already left and said, I'm done with it. If you want it, then hey, by all means, you voted it in, you live with it, stay there and live
stay
with
in California without your bacon.
The only people that'll be left to vote are the celebrities.
Yep.
That's what they want.
And they're also the ones who don't even freaking live in the streets like everybody else.
No.
It's literally like celeb elites and then poor homeless people that are lining Hollywood Boulevard in tents. That's it. And it's like, you know what? Fine, if that's what you want, and you can feel high and mighty when you chip $100 at them while you walk down the road,
Well, they
or
Yeah.
you get your security
they don't
to
give
do
money
it.
to the homeless.
Of course not.
They-
Well, they do
they-
through the government. They
yeah,
think they're
yeah,
helping through that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, they go down a street in their limo with homeless on the side. They roll their windows up and look the
so
other way.
sad. Somebody needs
Yeah.
to do something.
Somebody
Let's
needs to
vote
move
for
them off the street.
Newsom. Let's
Yeah.
vote for him. He'll fix this town.
He's like, there's homeless out front where I can see them. Somebody needs to get them out of the way.
Alrighty, guys, let's move on to our final topic tonight. That is
Our unique segment.
our unique weekly
Woo!
segment. Let's roll that big, beautiful footage.
Let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the moon up above. And a thing called love.
Always
Oh.
feel,
Oh.
like drunk when I say that.
You sounded drunk.
Love. Did I?
Oh, yeah.
That was what
That
I
was like
intending.
drunk carpool karaoke.
That would be good, actually. If you mix like Cash Cab with carpool karaoke,
Yes.
that would be pretty good.
Yeah,
I think you could do that.
yeah, that'd
Maybe,
be
like,
fun.
Sing the answers or something.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm just coming up with random stuff now.
that'd be fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on to our topic. I've carried on.
What
enough.
is that topic
It's a pretty good one, I think. We got a good one tonight.
in our
So-
relationship?
We talk about a lot of different topics on the relationship segment, but I thought one that may hit close to home, especially with all the talk of, COVID and mandates and vaccines, I thought it would be interesting to talk about standing your ground against peer pressure.
Peer pressure, or
Peer
maybe
pressure.
you've fallen into peer pressure because some
Yeah.
people give in. Some people are like, "Well, everybody else is doing it, so I'm gonna jump off this bridge too."
That too.
Yeah,
Because I think what's interesting is this was always something that was brought up, I believe, in middle school when
I don't want to say my whole life. I mean, growing up, even in elementary school, when you have like dare, that's like
right.
peer pressure. It's like just say no.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, peer pressure for the right reason,
Just say
or
no.
the right or the wrong reason.
Yeah.
Who was that rapper that did that? Just say no.
You're not. No, Nancy Reagan was the one who.
No, but I'm talking about
spearheaded I don't know.
he did like a song for dare or whatever. and I
Oh,
can't
they're talking
remember.
about the local guy with Sir Friendly C.
Maybe that was who I'm thinking of.
Sir Friendly
Yeah.
C.
Just say no. yeah.
He's a local cop, man.
Yep. Then we had
Yeah.
Named a street after him.
well, my favorite local celebrity in elementary school was always Louis the Lightning Bug, but I don't think they do that anymore.
Mine were the Wolf Brothers.
I don't care about
That
the
was
Wolf Brothers.
LG&E, right?
Yeah.
LG&E
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
Louis the Lightning.
I don't think
Bug.
they do that anymore, but I remember Louis
Mhm.
coming and visiting at elementary school.
Or the Kentucky Farm Bureau guy at the
State
the
fair?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I always
yeah.
remember him.
yeah, well, he's still
it-
there.
He still
there.
is.
Fred
Is it
Yeah,
Freddie
Fred.
Farm Bureau?
Is it
I think it's
Fred or-
Fred. Yeah.
or Ted or something like that.
Something
I
like
always
that.
liked the steel drum people when they came around. I always
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. I always liked.
And then I ain't gonna lie, when
yeah.
the high school
This has nothing to do with peer
choir,
pressure.
I know. Now I gotta get this out.
No.
there.
I'll go ahead.
When the high school choirs would come by to do like the Christmas and they'd hand out the candy canes
Yeah,
in elementary school,
yeah.
and there was always that cute girl that you were just like, ooh, she gave me two
Yeah,
candy canes.
I got 2 candy canes.
that was it. Alrighty, let's talk
It's
about
peer pressure.
standing your ground against peer pressure, or
If
just
someone
maybe
offers
giving
you
in.
free drugs, you take that because it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you said that before.
I
I'm
did.
just like, I've never had someone ask me if I wanted drugs.
I had
Ever.
someone offer like when I was.
You don't live in Newsom's L.A.
It was either.
That's true.
I don't remember if it was.
I went to PRP though, and that's you would
Yeah.
think, but
That's close.
I would say it was either early middle school, maybe late elementary. It was really weird. I do remember a kid like offering me like a black and mild. Like, you want to smoke this? It's like, no, I don't want to smoke a black and mild. What's wrong with you? And that was probably like the worst peer pressure I've gotten in that regard. But never was somebody like, here, you want
Yeah,
some weed or drugs?
Cigarettes
or,
in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was always the big one.
It's like
in
most
middle
people who
school.
have like drugs had to pay for that, so they're not offering it to you for free.
right, yeah.
That-
Not
that-
even cigarettes. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody ever said, "Hey, do you want a cigarette?" It's
Yeah.
like if I wanted one, I had to ask for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had one. I've had one cigarette.
See, I did.
Ooh, you
that
gave
was,
in?
It wasn't because of peer pressure.
Yeah,
I just had a generous friend.
that was peer pressure. I did stand up to. He said, "You want to smoke this?" And I was like, "No, it's stupid." And that's
Stupid.
it. Yeah,
Stupid.
Give me
See,
that black and mild.
yeah. Here's
That's
the,
what he
here's
wanted. He
the
wanted
thing.
the hard stuff right away.
There's definitely worse things I have done in my life, but all of the bad things I've done really weren't peer pressure. They were just me being stupid enough and wanting to do them. So
Yeah,
it's kind
you're
of
dumb
like,
enough to make your own choices.
yeah. So I mean, I'm not saying that I've never given into peer pressure or that I haven't stood up against peer pressure, because both have happened. But there's definitely a lot of things that I would say that mistakes I've made, most of them were just my own dumb, like you said, dumb choice, not really because someone pressured me into it.
Yeah, no, well, I don't know. I mean, it's like
I mean, it definitely happens. I'm not.
to
I'm
me,
saying
it's
it doesn't. Yeah.
varying levels, and
Yeah.
and it's like sometimes it could be. I mean, I think the most typical form of peer pressure, if anything, is usually within school when you're an adolescent growing up, because who doesn't want to fit in?
Yeah.
And you're always looking to find ways to make sure that you're not the outcast. But and sometimes that even makes you the bad person of peer pressuring someone else. You know, because now if you're included, it's like, well, what am I going to make these people do to make sure that,
Yeah.
oh, I'm cool, I'm fitting in, why don't you? And I do think as you get older, and again, your relationships with different people become more defined, as far as you have a close inner circle versus like an outer circle. And obviously, as you just get older, you just don't care anymore about what other people think and how they care about, feel about your life. But ultimately, I mean, I don't know. It's like, I guess peer pressure in a way, I don't want to say it goes away as you get older. I think it gets redefined.
I think, I mean, I can't, it kind of depends, because there's other people I've known in school that I can look at and be like, yeah, they definitely fell into peer pressure. I think depending on your character and if people know your integrity and your character, I think that kind of comes into play too. If someone knows that, oh, well, you're probably just going to do whatever
You're
to fit it.
susceptible,
Like,
yeah.
if they know it's like, oh, well, that person just will do whatever and party because they want to be liked, they're going to peer pressure you more. When they know, oh, Keith's not going to do that, we know he won't do that, so they don't offer. And it's not that they ignore me or don't hang out with me, but it's like, I think there's just times where they know it's like they don't bother because they know who I am. So,
Right.
Yeah. What really bothers me is when you make your stance clear
oh,
to
and then
people,
they don't
but
leave you
they
alone.
still, they just don't leave you alone about it.
Yes.
I
That's
hate
what
that.
pisses me off.
Well, and I
And
think
that's what makes me question whether you're really a friend or not. And
well,
that's-
and I was going to say, regardless of even what's going on right now with the COVID vaccine and the mandate with regard to that, it's like, I think you also have...
Yeah, lots of peer pressure going on with that one.
Oh, no doubt. But I also
well, it ain't
think...
just from people; it's from our own government,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's from celebrities, and it's from
Well, it's
TV
I don't even know
shows
if you
and
could-
things like. I mean,
yeah.
they're throwing it in everywhere. They're
Well-
bribing people to get the.
That's what I say.
vaccine.
I don't even know if you can call it peer pressure, because is it really peer pressure when they make it impossible for you to live unless you do what they want?
That is-
at
but
that
that-
point.
that's the
at that
ultimate
point, I
form
feel
of-
like that's
of
not
peer
peer pressure.
pressure.
That's just a dictatorship. But now you're just getting into
Well, there's no...
fascism.
I
So,
mean, it's fascist, but it's like...
I
When
mean,
you
still
have the...
you still have a choice.
Well, I was going to say, when you have... Well,
Right
and,
now.
and again, even then, when you have a group collective that is majority, again, that's mob rule. And
Yes.
it's like when you have enough
Yeah.
people that, back up to a certain point and say, well, again, we're going to look at you differently because you didn't choose this point. I'm like, that completely rejects anything we were told growing up
Yeah.
to defend our own values and our own morals and our own stances on certain issues and to stand our ground. And so, no, I do give credit to those people who stand up against anybody who's peer pressuring them into anything, whether it's the mandate or, I'll do it to myself sometimes. I'll be sitting there, whether it's the next big, greatest piece of tech that comes out, whether it's, oh, well, my car's not looking too shabby or it looks pretty shabby and I want, something that's newer and nicer. And so
Tesla.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to. Can't afford that though, unless I live in my car. But it's like I do it to myself sometimes of pressuring my own personal inner voice that's saying, "Don't do it." This
Well,
isn't
that's
the time.
not peer pressure,
Don't-
because you're not your own peer. That's self pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. I like that. That was a good. That was a good psychological analysis.
Don't pressure
Yeah,
yourself.
Yeah.
But most of our self pressure comes from peer pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, once we've seen what everybody else has, and it's something that we would, like you said, the Tesla, like I don't necessarily think that's a fad right now. It's a nice vehicle, and it's, and probably in the next 10 years, it's going to become a much more prominent vehicle amongst the other manufacturers.
Yeah.
But it's like right now, you probably know people that have one. You see them on the road a bit more often than you used to. You read more about them, and it's like, yeah, everybody's review online says they're great. So it's
Yeah, but no one's pressuring you.
they're
to
not
buy
they're
it.
not
That's
they're
more
not
just a
forcing
jealousy
you to
thing.
get it,
but it's the
they are
idea.
making you feel like you're nobody if you don't have one. Just like the new iPhone, we've talked about that. Like Apple makes you feel like you're stupid if you don't have the new phone.
Well, again, I think it
I
depends.
still don't-
But it depends,
yeah.
I think, on what it could be. I mean, it's the kind of the keeping up with the Joneses effect. It's
Yes.
like I need to
Yeah,
feel.
yeah.
I mean, and that varies across the board for everybody. And whether you've got your own taste, it could be music, it could be video games, it could be books, it
Yeah.
could be any kind of consumption of something that
That's that was a good one though, Brandon, because
And
I let a girl peer pressure me into country music,
See,
and
yeah.
I have regretted it. I have regretted it ever
Same.
since.
I could say
And
the
I don't
same
listen to
thing.
country
Aw.
music
I like
anymore
country music.
unless it's Garth Brooks or Alan Jackson.
Yeah.
I don't listen to it.
I like country music, but I mean, I wasn't peer pressured into listening to it.
Well, you grew up with it.
I was.
But it's one of the, as far as some of the other stuff goes, though, it's again definitely like Brandon said, that keeping up with the Joneses effect. But that's more. I'm not saying it's not peer pressure, but to me, that's also on you because really
Yeah,
you can only
yeah.
be peer
Absolutely.
pressured. You can only be peer pressured as much as you allow people to.
Yeah, I'm not trying.
So,
I'm
yeah.
not trying to remove the
I mean,
responsibility.
it's still your personal decision, no matter
Right.
what choice you make. And it's definitely that's why, especially like you said, when we were growing up, they taught you to stand your ground. Of course,
Right.
now it's not about standing your ground; it's just doing whatever the government tells you to do. But
Well,
you know.
no,
Going with the flow.
I wouldn't even say that. I think it's more maniacal and more deceitful. I think it's the underlying idea
Yeah.
of when you don't have. Again, this is kind of the cultural struggle we have going on in our society today, especially in American culture, and it is that struggle with identity. If you don't have your identity in something higher than a purpose, say from God. I mean,
That's what
our very
what I was
founders
going to
talk
say.
about it.
It really comes from where your morals come from. If,
Right.
If
Yeah.
you get your morals from the media and Hollywood and society, then you have crap morals and you're more susceptible.
Well, and all
to
we
those
find,
pressures.
is that how malleable it is with regard to whatever the next fad that comes along is. Whether it's looking at Instagram Reels or TikTok or Facebook or all the social media that tells us, "Hey, your life could be as good as this if only you do these things." And it's not like
Yeah.
there's a generated list. It's just we do this to ourselves. How often do we get on social media and yearn that we have a life of somebody else, even though we're only seeing the good things that are being posted? There's this constant, I think, battle we have within our own identity. But when you have that strong foundation saying, okay, I'm not going to give into these social or societal pressures and cultural pressures because I ultimately know that beyond that is not, this facade of truth. There is a real truth that is rooted in what I know because I've seen it, I felt it, I know it to be true because God has spoken it to me. And if that's the case, then I don't think it becomes easier. I think actually it becomes harder to resist that peer pressure. But again, if you have more of a reason and I think more of a determination to stand your ground and keep yourself from being susceptible when you have that strong foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt. And I think that becomes harder as the culture shifts, especially away from things that used to seem either not as controversial or something that seemed not as, foreign to a lot of people. But as the culture continues to shift away from my own personal values and my own personal morals, of course it gets harder to live. Because again, you don't really find more in common with your neighbor. You find more dissent.
Yeah.
And that breeds hostility.
Well, again, like we've said before, I mean, we prefer clarity over agreement. That's something that Dennis Prager has often said. But
Agreed.
But you find that that's not the case today.
No.
It's you either think the way I think or I'm done with you, and that's a really sad state of affairs.
It is.
And I think that's why we find ourselves so split now, and why things have gotten as bad as it has gotten is because people they refuse to let someone else live if they don't have the same viewpoints, and that's not how it should be, and that's not how it used to be, but that's how society has made things now.
And
Yeah. Unfortunately, our government and leadership allows some of these things to be
yes.
Not even just
exasperated.
allow, I think they encourage it.
Well, they encourage it. Look at where we were not last year, because last year was all COVID, but the year
Yeah.
before that, everything was about race. And it's like it's
Well, that
almost
guy
like there's so
ratcheted up
many.
last year.
Yeah, I know, but there's so many things that are just kind of accelerated by the government, or like you said, Keith, they're enticed and pushed by the government to divide us on whatever they can. It's like they can divide us on race. Nope, that didn't work. I mean, it worked for a little bit, but then the people finally started to say, this is getting ridiculous. And now they're even, we have something that just, came out of nowhere with this pandemic, and it's let's divide people in a way with the pandemic.
Well, and
you
not
have
to sound like a conspiracy theorist, because I'm not one, but it's easier to keep power when you keep people divided. I mean, that's just a fact.
no
Oh, yes.
It's just a
yeah,
fact.
when you keep people afraid.
Yeah.
As long as there's something to be afraid of. And that's my thing. I see things on Facebook from family members and everything. I try my best to stay out of it, but it's just like I have family in another state that are so up in arms and freaked out about this. And I'm like, you realize that 99.8% of people that get this survive, and like 96% don't ever see the inside of a hospital.
Yeah.
But you're calling it a public health crisis.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not a public health crisis. AIDS is a public health crisis.
Abortion
is a public health crisis.
Yeah.
I mean, drugs and the use of needles and all these different things, that's a public health crisis. I'm just saying, like, when you've got something that you have a better chance of getting hit by lightning or eaten by a great white shark than you do of dying of COVID,
yes,
that's not a public health crisis.
Right.
So stop. But that's what they're only repeating what they've heard. That's not really their opinion.
And
they're
I
just
was
repeating what they've heard on TV.
Well, talking about kind of going back to responsibility and again, not shirking responsibility for the pressure that I give into. No, it's about staking a claim and being responsible for the choices that I made. And ultimately, where I get frustrated with our culture, and it goes back to kind of what you were talking about with our leaders, Sean, is there are too many leaders in public positions, whether it's in politics or celebrities. Too many people who have they have notoriety for whatever reason, whether it's they're famous because of their music or they're an actor or because they are a politician. Too many of them have cowardly stepped down from saying, here's what I think, here's what I believe, and we have allowed what I believe is the small minority of vocal objectors to come through and break through and say, no, you will be canceled, you will be shut up, and we don't have we don't have the majority of people saying, instead of just shrugging it off and saying, who cares what they say, when they are the ones controlling the conversation, we should care. We should care about everybody's individual ability to stand their ground, and we should fight for those people who are willing to stand up and stand their ground. And when we have that peer pressure to cave and say, if you don't necessarily agree with me, then I'm not going to fight for your right to stand your ground. Well, then it's only going to cascade, and it's going to get to the point where nobody's allowed to stand their ground on any issue, because, again, if it's not the popularist issue of the day, well, then your opinion doesn't matter, clearly.
But that's the thing, though, is they do control the conversation. They control Facebook, YouTube, Google.
Yes.
They control the news. They control everything. I mean, look at the guy that just the Marine. I forgot what he was, a lieutenant or a captain, he was somebody high up.
Who spoke about accountability.
Spoke out against the pullout in Afghanistan immediately.
Yeah.
He was
relieved.
Yeah, he was relieved of command and 3 years short of retirement. So he doesn't even get his pension.
Disgraceful.
Yeah, it is
disgraceful.
And it's all because he spoke out against something he thought was wrong.
Yes.
And it's like, you can't have an opinion anymore without getting fired or canceled, or I think at some point it's going to end up turning into violence, because you do have people that are showing up at people's homes. Yeah. And you have people that are threatening people's lives. Of course, everybody is 10 feet tall and bulletproof on social media, but there's people that are really looking for people and trying to make their lives miserable just because of an opinion. Yeah. It's like you can't have an opinion anymore.
No. Well, and let alone not only just an opinion, but again, it does come down to, like you said, this divisive nature of, if you do not fall in line with what I believe, then you don't have a right to exist. And I think that's where I have a problem with what we have done as consumers and what we have done it's not just about what the government is pushing. The government, in so much as I believe, is only kind of they are a product of what we as a society have allowed for too long, and we have rested on our laurels to say, yes, I am okay with giving up control and power to the happy few at the top of these major corporations, of these major political establishments, of all these institutions in which they have a control over my life. I'm okay with giving up that amount of control of my own freedoms to those few at the top who will then dictate how I am, how reactionary the populace is towards me and how vitriolic they can be. And I think that's where we have, as a society and as a culture, have to turn that tide. We have to stand our ground. We have to fight back. Because if we do not fight back for that public square, then we've forever lost it.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what we're teaching our children and what versus what we've been taught. Like, I mean, my son came home from school the other day and he had these vocabulary words. He's in the 3rd grade, but he has these vocabulary words, and it's like, I think one of them was fact, opinion, evidence, and conclusion was the 4 words that he came home with. And we're sitting at the dinner table and we're talking about them. And I'm like, so do you know what all of those things mean? And he's explaining them to me. And I said, can you give me an example of what these things, and he did a really good job. So I kind of know at least Bullitt County schools aren't turning my kid into a woke, shell of a person. But, we were just talking to him, and I'm like, so if he had a cup in front of him that was blue, and I was like, if I told you that cup is red, like, is that my opinion or is that a fact or what? And he says, no, the cup is blue, so that's a fact. The cup is red is just your opinion. And I said, yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that the cup is blue.
Exactly.
And he's like, no, it doesn't. And I said, well, then
Good.
You need to understand that if you know the facts, then you don't have to let people's opinions dictate what you believe to be as a fact.
Yep.
And I said, you stand on the cup is blue, and it doesn't matter what I say or how convincing I am. If the cup is blue, that's the truth, and that's what you stand on.
Right.
And then we rolled that into a conversation about God and everything.
Exactly.
And I'm like, if this is what you believe, you stand on it, no matter what other people's opinions are or whatever. If that's what you really believe, then stick with it and don't move. And I mean, he's really smart, and he really is. And I'm happy that at least the schools are teaching him something like that. But
and again, I like what you're enforcing and reinforcing even in parenting. And I think this is what parents have to do across the nation is
now more than ever,
especially now more than ever. But they have to hold not only themselves responsible and accountable, but their children as well. We are all accountable for what happens in our society and in this world. And yes, we don't get it right. We are fallible. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is that we have to be diligent about getting out there and finding out the facts and knowing that we can differentiate between those who are trying to enforce their opinions and trying to push their subjective natures into objective reality. We know that's the entire fallacy with the transgender movement and with gender in general right now in the U.S. And again, it's trying to turn what was conceivable as far as saying, here's scientific proof. It's trying to take that and turn it on its head and saying, no. Subjectivity is now objectivity, and that's completely ignorant and ridiculous. And I don't think any society can stand on that, because then anything can be made true. And again, that's just reasserting those values that you have to. You as an individual, it starts with you, and you have to be responsible and accountable for what it is that you know. You can't blame anybody else for your predicament or your situation. You have to take responsibility and act on it.
Yeah, and people might be listening to this and thinking, "Wow, this is a far cry from peer pressure." But your foundation determines whether you are peer
Yes.
pressured or not,
How
whether you allow
susceptible
it
you
to
are.
affect you. Yeah.
It goes back to what we were saying earlier about where your morals come from, and you
That's
can
right.
only be peer pressure as much as you allow yourself to be peer pressured.
And
so-
honestly,
yeah.
and I have to just to end on a glimmer of hope without being all doom and gloom. I will say kind of what Sean's talking about in terms of reinforcing those values within that family setting. I think there is no better way of doing so than in that vein, which is through a family. Through a mother and a father with their kids, and reasserting those values as we grow as a nation and as generations go on. Because how can you fight that insolence, and how can you fight that determination to destroy our values? You have to fight it with reinforcing your values to the next generation.
Yeah, family's important.
And if family absolutely is
Vin
important.
Diesel has taught us that.
No doubt.
Yeah. Family.
Alrighty, guys. I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, right there at the bottom of your screen, you can reach us on Red Moon Book, Red Moon Tweet, Red Moon Picks, and search for Red Moon Productions on YouTube.
What if they don't want to use any of the social services that most modern people use? What if they're kicking it old school, 90s style, and they want to shoot us some type of mail through the internet?
Electronic mail?
Yeah. Like,
Wow, what could that be?
Email?
I think you hit the nail on the head.
I think if you still do the email route, you can always message us at rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com.
Doesn't it just sound so sexy, Sean? Every time
It
he says
does.
it.
I just like delivering it. I do.
I know I'm missing out because hearing it in person just gives me cold chills.
Yeah.
Like
A shiv-
I don't get it over
Well,
this electronic
After
video.
the show, I'm going to drive to your house and whisper it in your ear.
Sweet nothings.
Podcast@redmoonproductions.
And don't forget that we're going to be reviewing Shang-Chi.
Ooh.
Shang.
Shang-Chi.
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 I just Shang Song.
Shang.
Your
Shang-Chi.
soul
Shang-
is mine. Yep. Right
Yeah.
there. That's next week.
Yeah.
Big AAA movie.
That'll be, that's a big one coming
Can
out.
Disney deliver?
Well,
Another Marvel hit? You shall
Yeah.
find
I
out.
don't trust Disney to deliver much, but I do trust Kevin Feige. So hopefully
Go
that'll
to
work.
the theater. Go to the theaters and see it. We'll
Yeah,
see you at the movies.
support
Well,
it.
you have to see this one. It's
That's
not
right.
going to be on Disney Plus.
That's
You
right.
know.
True.
As Bob Chapek, that's the
Yeah,
current.
Chapek
as
is the
he
CEO.
said, it's going to be their interesting experiment. We'll see if it pays off for them.
We shall see. Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in every Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. right here on YouTube and Facebook. As always, like, share, subscribe, and please give us some love, all the love you can. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and pitiful, just pitiful.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.